Greetings everyone, I'm Adam Haritan. Welcome to the woods of Pennsylvania. I'm really excited right now because I've never been to this specific location, and what brought me specifically here is that I heard that there were some American chestnut trees growing around here. And not just American chestnut trees, but living and potentially healthy American chestnut trees, and not just one or two, but several. And rather than explore this area by myself, I thought I'd take you along and show you what I find. Now, this is not an American chestnut. This is northern red oak. And I just got out of my car and just walked into the woods, and I haven't seen an American chestnut tree yet, but I'm seeing northern red oak, I'm seeing red maple, I'm seeing black birch, I'm seeing white oak, striped maple, American beech, eastern hemlock, and a couple other trees. No American chestnut tree yet, but hopefully that changes soon. So let's go head east and see what we can find. Okay, so here is the first American chestnut tree that I've seen today. Super exciting find. I knew I would find at least one eventually, and I think we'll find some more. So I'm about a quarter of a mile from where I parked. Had to go uphill a bit, so I'm at about 2,200 feet of elevation. These are the leaves, the large toothed leaves. This is a trunk right here, smaller trunk, and there's a trunk right there. And these are all the same tree. They're all coming from the same root system. Now, I should probably explain why it's so exciting to find American chestnut. Why would I come all the way out here and bushwhack through all this understory just to find one tree species? Well, American chestnut has had a rather interesting past century and a half. So this was a rather common tree up until about the late 1800s, early 1900s, when a fungal disease known as chestnut blight was detected on American chestnut trees at the Bronx Zoo in New York. And within a couple decades, billions of these trees died because of chestnut blight, and also because humans started cutting down healthy, large, stately American chestnuts as a preventative to help stop the spread. But as it turns out, that might not have been such a wise strategy. So this tree used to be common throughout many parts of its former range in eastern North America as a large tree. Today, you don't really see that in eastern North America. Outside of that native range, you might see some large, healthy, reproducing trees. But today in eastern North America, it's not uncommon to see trees that look like this, but this isn't that large. But what's exciting about this find right here, I don't see any chestnut blight on this specific tree. Now this tree is maybe about 40 feet tall, so not huge, but not super small either. But it looks healthy to me. And right before I hit record, I started looking around, and I'm starting to see more American chestnuts. So I'm in a good spot. Let's go see what else we can find. Okay, so here's another living American chestnut tree. And what's really exciting is that on the way to this tree, I kicked up a woodcock and it flew that way. Unfortunately, I didn't get any video footage. But I also saw maybe 10 other living American chestnut trees. Now, I didn't stop to film them because they looked pretty similar to the first one that I showed you, but this one looks slightly different. It's single trunked and it's healthy. I don't see any signs of chestnut blight on this tree. And it's rather tall, maybe 55 feet tall. Now, when you hear about American chestnut, maybe over the years you've heard the word extinction thrown around when people talk or write about American chestnut. And maybe you thought this species is extinct. Well, clearly it's not numerically extinct because individuals do exist. They are alive. This one's living right here. I showed you another living one. Many living individuals exist here where I'm exploring right now. But when ecologists talk about extinction, they typically categorize extinction into two main categories: numerical extinction and functional extinction. So numerical extinction is when the last member of a species dies. Think about the passenger pigeon. In 1914, the last passenger pigeon on Earth, her name was Martha, died. No more passenger pigeons. That's numerical extinction. Functional extinction is when too few members of a species exist on Earth to fulfill or support the ecological role that the species once performed. So people say that's American chestnut. Now, I personally think that term is rather subjective because a species' role can shift over time. Even a species' range can shift dramatically. It can expand, it can contract over thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of years, and the role that a species performs during that time can change. And with American chestnut, surely it was way more abundant in the past, at certain times in the past, and it's not so abundant today. But in areas where this tree produces viable nuts, it still feeds animals, it still feeds mammals and birds, it still associates with insects, it still associates with bacteria, it still associates with fungi and supports communities of those organisms. So when I hear the term functional extinction, I do have some qualms with that term. All right, I hope you're still watching because I think I found the biggest chestnut tree I've ever seen that's still alive. Look at the size of this one. I mean, it's not huge, it's not old growth, it's not mature, But compared to those first two that I showed you, I mean, those are the sizes that I typically see when I find a decent sized American chestnut. But this one right here, much bigger, much taller as well. I would say it's 65 to 70 feet tall, healthy, intact canopy. I don't see any signs of chestnut blight on this tree. This is pretty amazing. And the bark kind of looks like an oak, doesn't it, as it matures a bit. And that's not too surprising because the genus that this belongs to, Castanea, is in the same family of plants that oaks belong to, which is the Fagaceae family. And that's the same family that beeches belong to. So it is the beech family, Fagaceae. So beech, chestnut, oak, all the same family of plants. So this is such an exciting find. Really excited that you are watching this right now. I don't know if I'll find another tree that's this big, but I'm going to keep looking. As I'm looking up, I don't see any burrs on this tree though, because it's still somewhat shaded. And I think if I'm going to find burrs on a tree that contain viable seeds, it might have to be out in the open a bit more. So I'm going to keep looking. Fingers crossed we might find a bigger tree than this one. Okay, so I've been walking around for about a half an hour and I haven't seen any other American chestnuts of the size that I previously showed you. So no rather large ones. I'm seeing a bunch of smaller ones, which is still good news to find any living American chestnuts around here. But if I find a nice big one, I'll definitely show you before I wrap up this video. But this is a decent specimen right here. And this one doesn't seem to have any chestnut blight infecting it. I don't see any of those orange pustules that would tell me that it's infected with that fungus. I don't see major bark splitting. I don't see major wounds. The canopy looks to be intact, nice and healthy. I would say this tree is about 40, 45 feet tall. So how am I finding American chestnut in this forest? Because I'm not going up to every tree saying, are you American chestnut? Are you American chestnut? Are you American chestnut? I'm not doing that. I'm kind of loosening my gaze a bit and just kind of staring out into the distance and turning my head and looking specifically for the leaves, because the leaves of American chestnut are very, very distinct. They're some of the largest leaves on the trees that we have here where I live in Pennsylvania. They're long, they're canoe-shaped, and they've got these conspicuous teeth around the margins. And the tree casts a nice shade underneath it. So it has a rather dense canopy with large leaves. I'm not looking specifically at the bark. Personally, I don't have a good eye for American chestnut bark, so in the wintertime, I don't have the best luck finding American chestnut. But summertime, and right now I'm filming this in August, that's what I'm looking for, the large leaves that cast that nice shade underneath the tree. Other trees that might confuse me for American chestnut include cucumber magnolia. There's a decent sized specimen right behind the camera. Cucumber magnolia has large dark green leaves, but the margins of the leaves don't have teeth. So that's one big difference between cucumber magnolia and American chestnut. Maybe American beech. If I find an American beech tree, usually the canopy is very similar to the canopy of American chestnut, and the leaves are rather similar because remember, American beech and American chestnut are in the same family, but the leaves of American beech are usually much smaller than the long canoe-shaped leaves of American chestnut. So that's the difference that I'm looking for. Let's go see if we can find another tree before we wrap up this video. Okay, so I've been walking around a little more. I've been finding some more living American chestnut trees. This is a decent sized specimen. I haven't seen another one that's as big as the one that I showed you a couple minutes ago. I still remain hopeful, but I'll probably wrap up with this tree unless I find another big one. But what you'll notice about this American chestnut is that there are many shoots coming up out of the root system. And that's what I showed you on the first tree. I showed you that there were multiple trunks coming up out of the same root system. Same story right here. So this is all American chestnut. And this ability of American chestnut to prolifically send up shoots from the root system despite being killed above ground is what has kept this tree alive on the North American landscape despite being nearly obliterated by chestnut blight. So chestnut blight, after the tree turns 15, 20, 25 years, chestnut blight will girdle the tree, kill the above ground portion of the tree before this tree reaches sexual maturity in many cases. Not all, because sometimes the trees will reach sexual maturity, produce nuts before chestnut blight kills it. But the above ground portion will die, but the root system will stay alive and continually send up new shoots. And so what's interesting is that even though this tree might look to be only 15 years old or 20 or 25 years old, it could be 50 years old, 75 years old, 100 years old, the root system, but it continually sends up new shoots whenever the trunk dies. So the trunk dies, new shoots come up, and the cycle repeats over and over and over again. Okay, so I think I showed you enough American chestnut trees for today. I think I found between 30 to 40 trees. Most of them were healthy and looked to be disease-free. I wish I could say that every tree was disease-free. Unfortunately, some of them did show signs of chestnut blight. But that big one that I found, wow, how about that one? That was the biggest living American chestnut tree I've ever seen. I didn't see any others that topped that size. But what's exciting is that it was disease-free. And hopefully, given enough time, when it starts producing nuts, maybe the offspring will be disease-free. And then those offspring will be immune to chestnut blight as well. And eventually, American chestnut perhaps may reclaim the status that it once held here on the North American landscape. What's all this behind me? Well, these are jack-o'-lantern mushrooms, and they're not fruiting at the base of an American chestnut. That's white oak. And I wanted to end on this note because I do still love finding wild mushrooms. It's been rather dry here in Pennsylvania, but the rain started to come back, and we're seeing flushes of mushrooms, including these common, beautiful mushrooms. They are toxic, so they're not edible. You do not want to eat these. You will get very, very sick. But they're beautiful, they're bioluminescent, and now's the peak stage for viewing. Not harvesting or eating, but viewing. Thank you so much for watching this video. I truly appreciate it. If you enjoyed it, I encourage you to subscribe to the Learn Your Land YouTube channel and head on over to learnyourland.com and sign up for the email newsletter so that we can stay in touch. Thank you again for watching. I will see you on the next video.